want you to tell me what it was, however small or enormous, what it was that made you realise the reality of what Jack was just describing. The moment that you, either by observing what was happening to other people or by simply clocking how much something costs today compared to what it cost last month or last year, you realised, actually, this is serious. That's what I really want your help with, because I told you before, and I'll tell you again, the paragraph that hit me most personally in Jack's thread, and by personally, I mean it was the only bit of it really that was about me, was the bit that said, I guess when the vast majority of our media were privately educated and came from the same handful of elite universities, nobody thinks to actually check in with anyone out here in the world to see how we're doing. So whether it's you yourself that can provide a little bit of testimony as to what is happening out here, out there in the world to see how we're doing, or whether the things that have made you realise with, like me, the luxury of distance, that this is actually now, I mean, we're not just on the brink of something very serious. We're in the, you know, we're in it. So what was it for you? Prices, bills, choices, changes, and it can be little. And I know, particularly for the Brits, particularly for the English, actually, talking about money and certainly talking about not having enough or not having as much is it's an excruciatingly uncomfortable conversation. But I think that's part of the problem that Jack described so powerfully. I think that contributes to it. So you've got half of the problem is people untouched by this reality not really paying enough attention to it, and the other half is people enduring this reality being too embarrassed or even, dare I say, ashamed to talk about it. It's why Jack is so amazing. I think that's one thing we can all agree on. So please don't be, but I do understand why you might be. So the calculation, the bill, the cost, the price, or the observation that just you would use to persuade some smug, middle-class, financially comfortable, I don't know, radio presenter that things are actually getting pretty bad out there. 0345 6060 973 is the number you need. I'll say that again because I do need your calls and we'll ring you straight back. 0345 6060 973. 26 minutes to 12. The news from Dover doesn't look great, but we will turn to that a little later because I want to get into this. And I suppose one way of asking it, and I'm conscious that this might sound crass and I apologise in advance, what's happened in your life that you could describe in the hope of persuading people who don't realise how bad the cost of living crisis is, that it is. There you go. Because an awful lot of people who don't realise how bad it is will care. I don't know that we can do much to reach the people who will never care. They'll already be suggesting that you've had too many children or that you should get a different job, or I don't know anymore what they suggest. And increasingly, I don't care. So what would you say to people lucky enough not to know how bad it is in language and with examples that they will understand? Astonishing how many people are picking up on the price of a tin of Heinz beans. I know what Jack would say if they were here straight away. Say, Heinz? You're lucky you can get Heinz, because straight for the own brand. But Heinz, I've noticed, is about £1 a pop in most supermarkets, where if you'd asked me how much a tin of beans cost a few months ago, I'd probably said between 60 and 70p. £1, that's a big difference. And if you look at Jack's thread, I'll tweet it again from my own account. Some of these price rises are, well, look, that's the best way of describing it. If the price of a luxury ready meal lasagna had gone up at the same rate as the cheapest rice in the supermarket, a £7.50 lasagna would now cost £25.80. Becky's in Brighton. Becky, what would you like to say?
Hi, James.
Hello.
Thank you for taking my call.
Very welcome.
I understand that it is difficult for people to talk about this, and there is a sense of shame associated with it.
Yeah.
I mean, my personal position, I've been a parent since I was 19. My eldest is nearly 18. My youngest is 3, so I've been a mum for a very long time. I've got 3 children. That should not be a source of shame.
No.
I have 3 lovely children. I'm a good mum. I've worked full-time my entire life.
You see, already you make my heart bleed because you feel you have to sort of justify yourself
Exactly.
and you have to address these right-wing talking points as if they're relevant, important, and
I'll tell you what I do. I work full time, but I also donate to charities. I do dog rescue. You know, when you've been down, you want to help other people who've been down. That's where empathy comes from. My food situation has been precarious numerous times over the years.
Right.
I took my entire family vegetarian.
Okay.
We couldn't afford meat at one point. We're still veggie now. It's actually much better for ourselves and the planet, in my opinion. But that came from a place of not being able to afford it, or that certain types of meat that you can afford are such bad quality. I didn't want to give that to my children. You cook from home. I shop every day, but I shop the reduced goods so that I can, I can get things that are just short dated and are reduced. I mean, Co-op's great for that. Sorry, I shouldn't say names, but
no, you can if you want.
I look all the time at what deals are around, and sometimes I walk into a supermarket, walk around, and walk out because I know that I can't afford the prices. And lunch boxes for kids going to school. That's the thing that gets me. There are evenings where I don't eat,
At
and
all?
I work full time.
Yeah.
I'll eat ingredients, not because I make dinner for the kids, but I don't have enough to stretch.
There's not enough left over.
And that's I have to rent a 4-bedroom house because I've got 3 kids. I have to. Because all of the things that go into the cost of living going up, it's terrifying, to be honest.
What? I mean, you might be too busy getting on with it to attract it. But compared to 12 months ago, how much worse are things now?
Much worse.
So you've got the same amount of money, which needs to go much further. That's essentially what this crisis means.
That's literally it. And it's not a crisis.
No.
It's a tsunami, and it's been building and building and building. And I don't think we're yet at the point where it's crashing down. But if it does, I mean, this whole energy thing, I'm totally up in the air with that.
Yeah.
That I mean, Jack, when you spoke earlier, that was incredible. That's what got me to pick the phone up. Like the way that she's so eloquent. Brilliant, wonderful. I really appreciate you giving her the time.
Well, then maybe we'll start with lunch boxes when Jack starts providing us with a little bit more help
because school dinners are so expensive.
Really,
like genuinely, really expensive. School trips are more expensive. Insurance, everything's going up.
I wish you well. And part of me hates these conversations because I can't say anything at the end of exchanges with people like you, Becky, that in any way sort of improves your lot or brings any light into your life.
Do you know what? It's fine. We are managing. I am managing, but it's really nice to hear somebody talking about it. That's the point. It's not, it's not negative. I'm doing it. I will do it. I always do it. I've done it for 17 and a half years so far. I'll carry on doing it for another... Well, until the end of my life, until a parent, we carry on, we get on with it, but it does need to be talked about.
It needs to be talked about so that you feel seen and so that hopefully a little bit of there, but for the grace of God kicks in and the rest of us begin to be a little bit more aware, perhaps, of what the consequences of 12 years of so-called austerity or austerity plus this, plus that, plus Boris Johnson are likely to be doing to people. Some of this won't be linked to the domestic political situation. Some of these trends and tides will be international, global or European, but some of them will. Sally's in Cromer in Norfolk. Sally, what would you like to say?
Well, to echo really what was said before, we're finding it very hard. I work part-time and my husband's a teacher. Our petrol, instead of paying £50 every 2 weeks, it's now £50 every week. Our key meter is £50 a week. Then we have our council tax is over £200. Our rent has just been put up. And just those basics. I'm standing here now in my indoor coat, because we have indoors and outdoor coats now, so that we feel the benefit when we go out, because we were wearing the same coat. But it was so cold, we never felt the benefit, so we had to have new coats for indoors so we could keep everyone warm. And it's just me and my little baby. She's 2 at home at the moment. And, like, even the things that we used to buy just for her to get past the day, so just easy food so that she could... We can't afford, like, what I'd say picky food anymore.
Well, like
so
little boxes of raisins,
sausages.
little bits of raisins and stuff like that.
They're just so much more expensive. And if she wastes any of them, it's so much. Even when it comes to tea time and stuff, and me and my husband don't really get a plate of food anymore. What we do is we fill we've got 2 other kids that are at school. We fill their plates up, and when they come back in the kitchen, we'll have what's not left, and then just maybe add some extra pasta or something with it. And like if they scrape, which they've always been taught to do, tidy up, put it in the sink, it's devastating because you're just like, oh my God, there's a bit of meat in there. We could have eaten that.
Oh, Sally.
And it's just getting worse, and we can't really see a way out of it. We've cut down on anything that we've had. We've been together 10 years. We've never ever had a holiday or anything like that. Never gone away. Never had just nothing. And I just don't know what to do really, and how we can cut back on the electric. Yeah. We've tried everything, but we have electric heating. Elodie got a chest infection because it was so cold, so we have to put the heating on for half an hour at bedtime, just so it takes all the nip out the air upstairs. But then it's literally on a timer, and like 30 minutes goes past, I run upstairs and turn that off so that we don't go over that timer because it will just clog. Drying the clothes, that's really hard, so we have to have a tumble dryer. But like I say, limited. Sometimes we'll work out what everyone's wearing for the week,
sure,
and then we stick to that. And if it gets messy and stuff, I'm up all night, like hairdryer sometimes, or just like trying to dry it up high. But because the air's cold, because we've got no heating on, it's an absolute nightmare, and I don't know where it ends.
Nor do I. I can't pretend that I do. And I don't know if this is an appropriate thing to say, but presumably when your husband goes to work, he's teaching children who are in much worse situations than you and your children.
Absolutely. We know we're one of the lucky ones.
Oh, come on.
We've got homes. We've got nothing else to worry about. There's children there that like haven't had a good breakfast and are hungry, so they've been putting like fruit plates out and stuff like that. And we're lucky because they know that we're struggling a little bit. At the end of the week, if all the fruit isn't used, they send it home to us.
Gosh.
So, like...
And a lot of people listening, people like me, I'm not going to pretend, will reel most at the word teacher, I think, in your story, more than the examples of how much you're struggling. It's the idea that this, because it's, to use the language of socioeconomics, it's a middle-class profession. The idea... that this is happening to you.
He came into it late and he retrained.
Yeah.
And basically he was in a government job,
right,
and he wasn't getting what he needed from it.
Sure.
So he took a pay cut.
To be a teacher,
But he took a massive pay cut because he's still an NQT, so they get paid even less.
Okay. So there's some light at the end of the tunnel. Sorry to patronise you, but, as his qualifications improve, so does his salary, so does his wage.
Granted, but everything else goes up as well.
Yeah, well, that is the story. That is the story of this crisis, this cost of living crisis.
And the thing is that what angers me sometimes is I hear that, the lowest paid, you're going to get help,
Yeah.
We're just over that
threshold
help barrier.
Right. So you get nothing.
We're not going to get any help. No amount of...
And no child benefit for number 3 either.
Yeah.
That was David Cameron's genius.
But we knew that when we had her. And
I know you did.
That was our decision, but we were in...
A better financial...
We could afford everything then, and I walk round the supermarket with my phone on, calculating everything, and we get the basics. And then we get, like, the floor cleaner and the wash, and then we see what's left. And there's never any money left anymore. And in fact, it's... we've got nothing, and we need to start taking things out. And that's how it is now, where before we'd walk around, we'd do our little total, and we'll think, we've got £20 here. Shall we have, get some crisps and that for the kids at the weekend, and maybe a thing of popcorn that we can make and stuff like that? Nah, That's all gone. And the kids are noticing it as well, because my little boy wants to take guitar lessons and stuff, and we're having to say no. And like, he doesn't understand.
Of course he doesn't.
That, like, oh, but you know, we went shopping yesterday. Yeah, I know, but, like, that's extra and we can't do extra. And it's just horrible having to say no all the time now. Instead of it just being like no once or twice, it's no all the time.
That sucks. I'm sorry.
I don't really know how it ends.
No, nor do I. But as you say, and as the last caller said, the more we talk about it, then hopefully the more momentum can build up to establish that change. Sally, thank you. I'm not going to... That was Sally there, wearing her inside coat. 11:51 is the time. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC, where there's a reason why 15 million people, well, it was at the beginning of the programme today, it's probably gone up now, have responded to and read Jack Monroe's thread of tweets about food poverty in general, but specifically about food price increases. A couple more examples. The cheapest pasta in my local supermarket was 29 pence for 500 grams this time last year. It's now 70 pence. That's a 141% price increase. This time last year, the cheapest rice at the same market was 45 pence for a kilo. Today, it's £1 for half a kilo. That's a 344% price increase. Baked beans, and I can tell you now that these will be own brand, and indeed the economy level. There's sort of 3 or 4 different tiers, aren't there, on some of the essentials. 22 pence now, 32 pence. That's 45%. And canned spaghetti up from 13 pence to 35 pence. That's a 169% increase. And this is just happening now. It's happening right in front of us. And whether or not it is linked to political decisions or even referendums, I do not know. But I do know this. I don't care, really. I don't care. It's important that people know the reality of what's going on, and I don't know where to start in picking off the things that resonate most and hurt most. But I think inside coat is up there. 11:53 is the time. Rob's in Maidstone. Rob, what made you pick up the phone?
Well, James, this is a difficult call to make.
Go
on. I live with a long-term mental health issue and have been on benefits for the last 5 years. And in the last year, my food costs have over doubled.
Right.
I had a phone call last week to tell me that my tariff is finished for my gas and electric, and that's going to double. And the reason I actually phoned is because I think of myself as quite lucky.
Right.
Because I'm in long-term treatment and I've got a home.
Yes.
But then I'm reading the papers last week and I saw that the suicide rate for men over 40 has gone up again last year for the first time in 10 years. And one of the things I did for charity is I did a job taster thing at a mental health trust.
Yeah.
And was looking at how to prevent suicide. And one of the big things is that for men is their ability to provide for their families. Because finance is one of the big triggers. So much as I'm sitting here and my heart bleeds for the mums phoning in and the having to look after their kids, there's a bit of me going, don't forget the men.
It's a great point.
Because if we already had an increase in suicide last year, how many men are sitting at home right now unable to look after their families?
If you can't support your family,
then what are you?
You see yourself as
failed.
Yeah, and it's just not fair or right or true, but it feels that way.
And you know, I'm like the mums you've spoken to. I'm in the supermarket looking for the cheapest bits of this and the bits of that, and I bought a slow cooker so I could put food in the freezer.
Sure.
But no, petrol's gone up so much, I can't get out of my house.
It's a multi-pronged attack, isn't it, upon your life, really?
Yeah, and I've made it through the last 2 years without ending up back in hospital. But I don't know. I don't know if I'll make it through this year. And I know that sounds incredibly dramatic, and people at home will be, oh, what a thing to say.
Don't worry about them.
But it's the reality when you've got little and it's going and you cannot see any way out. I can't go and get a job and do a few more extra hours to make up the money. I have nothing to sell. The only thing in my house that is new is the fridge I bought 4 years ago. There is no give in the system.
It sounds trite, but the abiding theme, regardless of whether you're a mum or a dad or single or in a relationship, the abiding theme that this crisis encapsulates is that everything is costing a lot more. Everything is costing a lot more. And the amount of money you have to spend on it is staying exactly the same.
Yeah, James, I'm a fairly good cook. I mean, it's one of the things I can do.
Yeah.
So I used to be able to make meals for a week for me for 20 quid.
Yeah.
Well, now it's 45 quid.
The same meals.
Same meals.
That's the point, Rob, isn't it? That I think people like me don't really properly grasp. It's the same meals, and you've already cut your cloth with the 20 quid menu.
Yeah, I used to manage from that, or during the lockdown, to supply food for other people. I used to make care packages.
Oh, mate.
And here I am sitting going, right, I do all the stuff you're meant to do. I went out and I bought a 5-litre fairy bottle that'll last me for 2 years. And I bought a big bag of things for the washing machine. So I've done everything I can to I look at the vouchers and I go to all the cheap shops. And that there isn't anything I do that is in the least bit expensive or...
No, I do understand. It breaks my heart that you feel the need that you have to justify that, because, God, I don't think there's many people listening. Apart from... there won't be many people listening who...
No, there will be, James, let's be honest. There will be a load of people out there saying, oh, yeah, but you're living on benefits.
No, they won't.
Easy.
Well, there might be, but they're victims of idiocy and corrupt media, and if they saw you and met you and sat down with you, they wouldn't be like that. And this is the closest they'll ever get, so you're doing a valuable service to anybody in a similar situation to you.
It's not about me.
No, well, it is, mate, actually.
It's about all those men who don't have someone to turn to.
Yeah.
Or will be honest about what's going on for them.
And they're keeping it all bottled up inside and not being honest with their loved ones, who would like nothing more than to help share some of these burdens, but they think that would somehow be unmanly or unmasculine or woke or whatever the bloody word is this week. Mate, you're a giver, Rob. I can tell that from here. You're a giver. When you're in a better place and when you've got a little more, you like to share, you like to contribute, you like to make a difference. And listen to me, you will do again. And that's why we need people like you around the place, because one less giver makes everything worse.
Yeah, so just anybody who's in a financial problem right now, just talk to your loved ones. If you've got
have you got family, people?
I've got a couple.
Good.
But even they're in the same situation as me. I'm lucky I get to go to therapy.
Well, that makes a huge difference. That makes a huge difference. But you're also lucky to be who you are. And that is something that anyone listening to this will now appreciate the value of. I mean this, Rob. I mean it. We need more people like you around, not less.
Yeah, so just please, if you're struggling, talk to someone. It won't change your bills, and it won't change what you've got in your pocket when you get to the checkout. But it might save your life. And
it might stop gnawing away at you from the inside because it can't get out. Rob, thank you, mate. And amazing, really, to reflect upon the fact that Rob rang in because he was thinking about other people. I need to remind you of the number for the Samaritans, because if you are in the category that Rob describes and can't think of anyone in your life to whom you can talk, they're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, on the end of a phone line or an email to listen. And to let you or help you unburden and step back from some of the darker places in which we can all end up. The time now is 12 noon, and that free phone number for the Samaritans is 116 123. That's 116 123. I don't need to remind you what the question is, really, but talk about been overtaken by events. The calls have done precisely what I asked for. Be careful what you wish for. There's a thought that springs to mind. But the simple lived experience that would make those of us lucky enough not to understand what a cost of living crisis really is or looks like or feels like are what we will mostly concern ourselves with for the rest of the programme. Although I am going to talk to Rory Stewart, who is once again all over the news for his, well, I suppose, like other people one could mention, seeing his predictions about Boris Johnson come horribly true. But I'm also keen to get his take upon the unfolding and escalating situation between Ukraine and Russia. But we will, of course, be keeping in touch with Rob as well, as a lot of you are asking us to do. 1 minute after 12 is the time. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. 5 minutes after 12, and I will allow myself a moment to bang one of my favourite drums. Where would you be hearing this if it weren't for people like Jack Monroe? Which newspaper that you are likely to come across every day, or which corner of the British media would be likely to go in hard upon the actual cost of living? Because government cheerleaders will manipulate figures and talk about CPI and other acronyms that we aren't entirely clear about the meaning of. But where else do you go? And that's not an accident. How long ago was it that people were telling you not to blame the bankers for the financial crisis, or that, oh my days, every story you touch, there's evidence, isn't there, of Jacob Rees-Mogg's character. He was the one, wasn't he, that described food banks as uplifting? A lot of you referencing food banks, a lot of you feeling powerless. I can't really undertake fundraising. We used to when the show was a little bit smaller, but you get someone who's not acting in good faith, or someone who subsequently turns out to be a bit dodgy, and then you unfortunately, now the programme is so high profile, some people choose to pretend to believe that it somehow undermines the credibility of the station or the credibility of the programme. It's happened on a few shows. And therefore we can't really get involved in stuff that we could do when we were a much smaller operation, because of, I suppose loosely we'd describe them as trolls. It's tragic because it means that now I can't pass on messages or even donations to people like Rob, or whether they take them or not, I don't know, but we can't do that because dishonest people have got through before, and nasty people have tried to use those episodes as evidence of something bigger or more relevant. So I look, it moves me a bit to see how many of you want to, but all we can do is keep talking about it and go to food bank. Give more to your local food bank. Morrison's do little packs. I don't know if you've seen them. Morrison's have obviously consulted with, got a lot of time for Morrison's. They've obviously consulted with food banks to determine what's most needed. So you buy a bag, you can open it and see what's in it if you want, but they're clearly tailored to ensure that the amount of money you've got to spend on a food bank donation will be spent on the stuff that is most needed by the food banks, which really makes sense because sometimes you're not quite sure what to put in there. When we first started doing it, we thought, oh, well, fresh food is good. Fresh food's not good, generally speaking. But listen, I don't want you to take my guidance on any of this stuff. To just ask, just consult, or just. But think about doing it. You know, even small shops now have got donation buckets. How many times have you walked past? Here's the thing. All right, it's small, but it's real. So how many times have you, like me, walked past the food bank box at just after the tills and thought, oh, blast, I forgot? How many times have you done that? Right, next time you go shopping, let's all not forget. That's all. Can't change the world. Rome wasn't built in a day. But how many you've done it? I know you have. I know I have. Walked past the box, seen what's in it, and thought, oh, bloody hell, I forgot to put stuff in it again. And then carried on. Didn't go back in or anything. Well, let's just promise each other right now, you and me, on the table, let's just not forget. And if we do forget, next time we forget, here, this is easier. Let's do it this way, all right? I'll do it if you do it. You'll do it if I do it. Next time you forget, next time I forget, next time I get out and I've paid and I'm going back out to the car park and I go past the food bank deposit and I go, oh, flipping heck, I meant to get something and I forgot. Let's all just stop, turn around, go back in again. Get some stuff, get some grub, some nappies. Sanitary products are quite valued. Let's just do it. There you go. Little thing. How many people? I mean, 1.33 million people listening to this programme now every week. I don't know how long, well, I do actually, but I won't bore you with the details. I don't know how many of them will be listening at this precise moment, but just imagine if 1% of us did it, or 2%, or 5%. Make a little difference. In a little way, up and down the country, right across these islands. Next time you walk past it and think, oh, flipping heck, I meant to put something in it. Don't think I'll do it next time. Think, I'll go back in and do it now. There you go. Bish bosh. Small, but I hope effective. 9 minutes after 12 is the time. What is a cost of living crisis? Because I'll tell you something for nothing. It's not the kind of economics that you read in the fancy papers. Actually, that's not fair, is it? Because Jack's writing a piece for the Financial Times. So it's a brilliant, probably my favourite paper, hand on heart, the FT, although I only understand about 25% of it. But just the kind of... Now's not the time for James's favourite newspapers. But that's something we can do. 10 minutes after 12 is the time. Laura is in Kingston. Laura, what would you like to say? What made you pick up the phone?
Oh, hi, James.
Hello, Laura.
The last time I spoke to you, you were actually my first call to LBC, and it was about my mental health condition at the time, and you were fantastic, so thank you.
That's a relief.
But this time I just thought I'd fill you in. Basically, I live with I care for my mum, who's elderly and disabled, and I have severe OCD and haven't left the house in over 2 years.
Oh, I remember. Yes. I'm sorry to hear that.
You do?
Yes.
My goodness, I must have left an impression.
Well, you did. Of course you did. And then I've learned a lot
bless
more
you.
about OCD since I spoke to you, actually. It's...
Yeah, me too. You're always learning.
Yeah, that's for sure.
But anyway, yeah, so just really to say how it's affecting us, and just the new levels of deprivation that you sort of just get used to. And like I was explaining to the lady that put me in, put me through, that we haven't had a boiler for since November, and we haven't had hot water, and it's freezing. And I've got OCD, so I'm always washing my hands. So it's and that even if I could afford to get a new boiler, which you can't, because of all the energy crisis that's going on, we just decided not to bother putting it back on. Not that we can, because there's rats living in the boiler, but it's complicated.
It clearly is.
So, yeah, no, it really is. So the energy, if we ever were to get a boiler, if there was suddenly money for it, it would have to be electric.
What is... I'm going to sound ignorant stroke naive now, but what recourse is open to... If you need a big investment like a boiler and you haven't got the money, what are your options?
I mean, the only reason my mum owns her own house.
Yes.
So it's a real problem. There's very little out there when you do own your own house. And you saw where we were living.
Right.
Yeah. People wouldn't live like this, basically. As I said, we've got rats. We've got, they go over my feet. But I'm an animal lover, so I can live with it for the moment.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's animal loving and animal loving, isn't there?
I'm sorry,
so what I mean is, and
what you asked,
I know, and I don't want to kind of badger you, but in terms of, you mentioned that your mother owns the house, so
yes,
so you could free up some. I'm just thinking out loud, and I don't want to be insensitive.
Absolutely. The last,
but then you'd have to pay interest on. Yeah, go on.
I was going to say, the last time she went into hospital, because the ambulance people had seen the way we were living, they obviously said, we're going to get you some help.
Right.
But
God, and they must see a lot.
We get the same every time. It's social workers, they come in, all meaning well, they promise you this, that and the other, and nothing ever happens. And all it does is make life a lot harder. So we just plod on. That's what I mean. You just get used to new levels of deprivation, and until
what is the light? What is the light at the end of the tunnel, Laura? What does keep you up going, as it were? You loving your mum, I suppose.
Trying to plod away, clearing. There's too much, and there's no time to go into great detail.
No.
But it was really just to fill you in. Like, we've got cats, and even the food, each bag of cat food has gone up by £6. So it's coming from every single angle.
And that's the point, isn't it? I know I keep repeating it, but it is. I mean, the entry point for understanding, for those of us lucky enough not to be anywhere near the action, the entry point for understanding is just getting by, and then the price of everything going up while the money that you were just getting by on stays exactly the same. And that's going to apply to employed, unemployed, and others. There is an amazing charity that undertakes plumbing work for people in really tricky situations. But I think for the time being, they're confined to the northwest. I'll double check and possibly put you in touch with them if I misremember. 12:14 is the time. I keep meaning to get the chap that runs it on the show, actually. I think today is a good day to stick that on the to-do list. Laura, look after yourself. It's awful when people only really ring me when they're describing terrible things. I'd love you to give me a call when things are a little bit better, but I know how hollow those words can sound. 12:15 is the time. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. Rory Stewart joining us at 12:30 to turn our attention back to domestic and indeed international politics. And I by way of a change of gear or tone or something to cheer you up, because this is tough, isn't it, for all of us, I think. I did an amazing interview this week with Fergal Sharkey, a name that will resonate differently according to how old you are, more than almost anybody else in public life I can think of. Someone who, you know, the 3-4 acts of his time on the public stage are so interestingly different that it was an absolute joy to talk to him. He's a force of nature, one of those people that came out of the studio, and I just felt great. It was just, and I also felt, good God, that wasn't an hour, was it? It felt like 3 minutes. So from growing up in Northern Ireland in an incredibly interesting environment and family, right through his time in the Undertones, who of course were widely regarded as one of the finest bands of the time. John Peel famously thought that their track Teenage Kicks was the perfect song, the perfect pop song or rock song, whatever you want to call it. Then his solo career, which people my age would think of first, is You Little Thief or A Good Heart is hard to find. And then this weird latter day, and then all the stuff campaigning in the music industry, protecting things like live music and protecting artists from the changing nature and the grasping nature of the business. And then this latest iteration of Fergal Sharkey is probably the most prominent opponent of the rocketing practice of water companies pouring sewage into our waterways. There's so much to cover, and I'm not going to lie to you, we didn't cover all of it, but I will play you a little clip of that before home time today and urge you to download the podcast from wherever you get your podcasts, including Global Player. The Full Disclosure series now really does contain something for everybody. If you can look at the last 50 guests on Full Disclosure and tell me there's not a single one you'd like to listen to for an hour, then I can confidently say that you are listening to entirely the wrong radio programme. 20 minutes after 12 is the time. I didn't misremember.
Food banks predate the Conservative government. And crucially, the change that took place was that the Conservative government allowed Job Centre Plus to tell people that food banks existed. And the former Labour government would not tell them. And that was a policy decision to stop people knowing that there was help available. And I don't think the state can do everything. That it tries, and it provides a base of welfare that should allow people to make ends meet during the course of the week, but on some occasions that will not work. And to have charitable support given by people voluntarily to support their fellow citizens, I think is rather uplifting and shows what a good, compassionate country we are. And as I say, inevitably the state can't do everything. So I think that there is good within food banks. And the real reason for the rise in numbers is that people know that they're there, and Labour deliberately wouldn't tell them.
Renowned Christian Jacob Rees-Mogg there, who will no doubt be in church on Sunday. Oh, and here's Daniel Hannan, cut from similar cloth, tweeting a few moments ago. Well, we should be celebrating as if this were VE Day. Why is everyone so bloody glum? This follows a succession of, at best, questionable claims about the current coronavirus situation. 153,000 dead people obviously not appearing in his list of apparent wins and victories. 21 minutes after 12, it's like there's a sort of infernal production line of these people, isn't it? There's all sort of, every time you sort of think, oh, thank God they've disappeared from the fray, even in Hannan's case, into the House of Lords. The House of Lords probably sits next to Digby Jones and the rest of them. But and another one pops up. There's a never-ending supply of them. 22 after 12 is the time. Back to the cost of living crisis and what it actually is, because it certainly isn't anything like what I read about and hear about and listen to, because that coverage is generally provided by people like me who live a million miles away from the action, except on days like today when I get a glimpse, but it is obviously from the outside looking in. Ian is in Manchester. Ian, what would you like to say?
The first thing I'd like to say, James, is that listening to those clips that you played there, they're shameful, absolutely shameful.
You don't feel it's uplifting and rather wonderful that the state is No? Okay, well, each to his own, Ian, each to his own.
James, it's the first time I've called, and I'm extremely nervous and actually quite emotional listening to some of the things that have been said. But I suffered a relationship breakdown, and my finances were particularly strained. I have 3 kids, which I co-parent 2 days a week, and I've since the separation, I've been shopping at budget supermarkets as it stands anyway.
You weren't doing that. You weren't doing that before because you've got 2 properties now to support. Is that the main reason?
Well, not quite, but I'm obviously paying for the upkeep of my children and trying to create a new household and maintain that. I've also got a history of mental health problems, and the thing, I think it was the previous caller, Rob, what he said really resonated with me. But at the moment, even shopping in budget supermarkets is seemingly beyond me.
Jeez.
I earn a moderate income, and I don't qualify for any additional benefits or contributions because I earn too much, apparently.
What is the threshold? At what point would you get help? Do you know?
I'm not sure.
No, okay.
I mean, I've made some inquiries previously, but I earn around about £25,000 a year, which to many people may sound like a considerable income, but I cannot manage. Yeah. My rent accounts for about 40% of my income.
Right.
Obviously, paying for the upkeep of my children. I've got 3 children, and my finance will only allow me to have a 2-bedroom property. So okay. I share a bedroom with my 3-year-old twin girls when they stay with me.
Yeah. It's not ideal, is it, mate?
And the reason I called is I was laying in bed on Wednesday night due to be collecting my children on the Thursday. And I have a serious decision to make. My rent is due on Tuesday. My maintenance payments are due, and other finances are due. And I had to consider whether I would have enough money to literally feed my children yesterday. And I can't use the food bank because, again, apparently I'm too well off to.
Are you sure about that last bit? Have you been to Citizens Advice and asked to be?
I've made some inquiries, and if I was on benefits or if, I actually.
But you can get. I know that because I mean some of the most haunting messages I get are from people in full-time work who've been to food banks.
Maybe that's something I need to
have another look. I mean, crikey, I wish this wasn't the advice I was giving you, but it's probably worth having another look at that.
I was fortunate yesterday to be able to use a community shop local to where I live, which they provide products and goods that are at the use by date. So, and even that's a stretch, James. Even that's a stretch. And I've got a realistic proposition now that I may not be able to pay my rent this week.
What's communication with your ex like?
Great. Okay. She's been incredibly supportive. I don't want to,
Good. No, I'm just checking in because I mean you could maybe I don't know how much maintenance you're paying, but you could maybe shave a couple of quid off that, perhaps. I don't know, mate.
I'm a proud guy, James.
I know you are. We all are.
I believe the maintenance and the upkeep of the children is paramount. And
yes, I know. I know, but if she knew that you might, that you were short of grub when they're staying with you, then you're still supporting them, aren't you? It's not that you're taking anything from them for yourself.
I've managed today, James. And
good.
that's the important thing. It's as I say, it was the gentleman Rob who mentioned the issue regarding
men like you.
Men like me.
Yeah.
and
men like me as well, Ian. But for the grace of God, let's not be under any illusions about that. I'd feel
course,
like you feel.
And as I say, I'm a proud man. I've worked, and until my relationship breakdown, this kind of situation would never have entered my consciousness that it could happen to somebody like me who earns a reasonable income and has been very secure for a large number of years. I would never have conceived that this situation could ever have happened for me. And now I'm not even a statistic. I'm not even a statistic within.
You feel invisible, don't you? Invisible in these conversations because, as you say, you're on what from some angles looks like a decent crust.
But I thought, I fall in the crack between the floorboards, James, and the only way I could become a statistic is like Rob was saying, that my life becomes too unbearable. No. I can't continue. I'm not at that point. Absolutely not.
No. How many little ones?
Like that's the only way I become a statistic in this life.
What do the kids grow up with then, mate?
Of course.
What do the kids grow up with then? The biggest gap, the mother of all gaps in their lives, the father of all gaps.
That is the hook, James. That is the hook
that's
keeping me going forward. And listening to your show, LBC, is one of the few pleasures I have really at the moment.
Mate, you've fallen far, and you've fallen fast through no fault of your own. It's what happens. The world turns, people fall in and out of love, and you will bounce back. You will be back, and you'll look back on this period in your life, and you'll think, geez,
It's open, James. I'm not a young man anymore.
I know it's true.
47 years of age.
I turned 50 last week, mate. You're a spring chicken. You got 3 years on me. They're crucial years. Two things people are suggesting. One is a website called entitled2.co.uk.
Okay.
Literally that, entitled2.co.uk. It'll just help you do some calculations, find out if there is anything. And quite a few people confident that if you talk to the Citizens Advice, they'll give you a proper steer on whether or not you can get food and help from elsewhere.
It's painful that it's come to this, James, that I feel that...
Yeah, but it could be anyone.
It's my only option in life. And the likes of Rees-Mogg, who for all his grandeur and nonsense, really doesn't understand the nature of the human race, really, does he? Let's be honest.
No, he doesn't.
And my message is that no matter how secure somebody is at the moment, and in the middle, we're only 1 or 2 steps away from this situation.
Of course we are. Can I help you out?
Certainly.
Would that be all? No, I mean, can I just get your details and I'll throw you a few quid? Is that all right?
No.
No, I mean it. I want to, and then you can pay me back.
No.
You pay me back?
No, mate. James, I really appreciate it, and I genuinely do. But you do enough. You do enough for me at the moment. Just listening to your podcasts and listening to your radio show. You provide me with more wealth than. But
what if you're in bed next week and you're wondering about paying the kids? What are you going to think then?
Well, there's a will, there's a way.
If you change your mind, all right.
James, I'm not.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to embarrass you. I just.
No, I do. No, bless you. Honestly,
I've got kids,
really
mate. We're the same age. I've got children. It could have been me. It could have been any one of us. All right.
Yeah.
If you change your mind, it's just a bit of help to tide you over, and you'd have to pay me back. All right.
No, I do appreciate it, James.
Right. Well, look after yourself. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Stay safe. It will get better.
Good work, James.
It will get better.